is working okay, and then we'll begin the lesson. So, Academy, let me see if we're working. Yeah, we'll begin the lesson. Okay, we are working. Okay, so thank you very much to everybody who's joining us live. And we have 0 people that have joined us live so far, so I'm talking to myself. But if you're watching a recording of this, welcome to the people watching the recording. Okay, so first off, welcome to all of the new people. So over the weekend, I opened up the course to a small number of people who were in the 5-day challenge group, and about 100 people over the weekend joined. So welcome to all of the new people. And it's a great group of people we have here. We're really, really lucky that we have people that are cool. You know, they're nice people. They're really hardworking, and they all support each other, and makes my job much easier. So let me just close the curtains behind me, and then you won't be getting this light coming. Let me see. Oh, that's not so good. That makes it look a bit better. Right, so welcome to the 6 people that have joined us live, and let me explain how these live lessons work. So it varies depending on basically how much time I have, what mood I'm in, the demand for it. Sometimes we've done like 5 live lessons in a week, sometimes it is much less than that. And what I'm going to try and do is, going forward, try and do 2, 3, 4 a week, depending on my schedule and what I have to do. When I have tried to do 5 in a week, it has not worked out so well for me personally, because it takes a long time to prepare these lessons, and it takes a lot of energy to go live to a lot of people and to focus for a long time. So what I'll do is try and do between 2 and 4 going forward, and if there's always a demand for more. There will be a demand for more, but let's see how I feel about things. Yeah, and how they work is basically I share my screen with you. So let me show you. So I can share. So I share my screen, and I can show you all of the things that we're doing. It's not just my head for the entire live lesson. And what we do is I just introduce it at the beginning, and then we go into like a full lesson. And yeah, it works out really well because you guys can interact with me, and I can ask you questions, ask you for feedback and whatnot. And I can look at my phone, and I can see your comments on my phone. So hello Nalaka, hello Denise, hello. Is it Tran or is it Tien? I never know with Vietnamese names because sometimes on Facebook you put it the other way around. Edith, hello to everybody. Yeah. So what we do is we begin the lesson, and sometimes we do the lesson, I just do it like lecture style. That's very rare. I don't normally do it that way. Or we do it like interactive style, where I will show you stuff and I'll ask you for more information, so that you can think about it a little more. Or sometimes we do like a live writing or live reading question or something like that. So you'll see as the days and the weeks go on. Hello to Sophie. Hello to Tien. Hello to Abby, Christina, Hala, Celine. Wow, all new people. Welcome, it's great to have you in here. And to the old people, the new people coming in are really great because they all have been pre-screened, pre-filtered, because we did a 5-day challenge last week, and basically anyone I didn't like, I removed them from the 5-day challenge group. So the people that joined over the weekend were all people that I thought were cool people, so it should be really good. Alright, so anything else that I have to announce? No, I don't think so. But if you do have any questions, feel free to ask, and I will look at my phone every now and again just to check if everything is working okay. There haven't been any complaints so far, so that's always a good sign. Alright, let's look at what we're going to do today. Just give me 1 second. Okay. Let me see. A lot of people were asking, or not a lot of people, 1 or 2 people were asking, what about Task 1 General Training? If you want to do Task 1 General Training, there's a whole course. Everything is included there. Also, there are other live videos. Just click the videos tab to the left in this group, and you'll see all the videos. But today we're going to be focusing on analyzing Task 1 academic data. On Saturday, I asked the whole group, give me some feedback on what you find difficult. So today we're going to look at how to analyze the data, and then on Wednesday we're going to look at how to pick out the correct data, and we're also going to look at how to organize that data. So it should be good. All right. So here's what's going to happen today. We're going to look at. Go away, Constantina. Why is it so hard? Why is it really so hard? And what can you do to improve? So we're going to look at why most books, most websites, and me, I agree with most of these points, think that analysing data is difficult in Task 1. And then what I did over the weekend was I sat down and I really thought about what are the hidden reasons, what are the other reasons why students might find these tasks really, really difficult, and then we'll look at what you can do to improve. And we're also going to look at 5 different data sources, 5 different graphs. If you are new to this group and you haven't watched the Task 1 modules, if you have any questions about this, they're probably covered in the modules, but feel free to ask. But if I just say, look at the modules, that means that I know that you haven't looked at them yet. So I'm not being rude or trying to avoid answering the question. It's just the best answer to the question. Okay, so why is it hard to answer Task 1 academic questions? And in particular, specifically, why is it hard for people to analyse the data? Well, first of all, you have limited time. I advise my students to do Task 2 first, so you will probably have 20 minutes or even less than 20 minutes to do these. If you follow my system, you should be getting to these with 20 minutes to go. But one thing that happens is students know that they have 150 words to write. They know that that's probably going to take them about 15 minutes. So that only leaves kind of 5 minutes to analyze the data and plan everything. So when you are under that type of pressure, your brain doesn't work very well. Lots of scientific studies have been done with people who are under pressure and stressed out, and how their brain behaves versus somebody who's very, very relaxed. Like if you've ever been in a very stressful situation, say that you're crossing the road and a car nearly hits you, and somebody asks you a difficult maths question, you probably wouldn't be able to answer it, or even an easy maths question. So our brains do not operate very well under stress and under pressure. So when you see all of this data, it's quite difficult. Too much information. So the ones that students complain about the most are questions that have maybe, there was one not so long ago that had 6 different pie charts, or you might get like a graph with lots of information, or you might get a map with lots of different things happening in it. So limited time plus too much information, students tend to not do so well actually analysing the data because there's just too much to do in a limited time. I don't actually agree with that, but that's what most books and most teachers would say. Not sure what to include and what to leave out. So this is linked to the second point. If you get 6 pie charts, what information do you pick and what information do you leave? Because if you write about absolutely everything, you basically failed the task. You're not going to get very high marks for task achievement because the question states that you should select the appropriate data, and it does not say that you should select everything. So why is it really so hard? So those reasons, don't get me wrong, I do agree with those reasons to a certain extent. I know that there's limited time. I know that there's too much information. Well, that you think there's too much information, and I know that you think it's difficult to pick out what to leave and what to do. I think that students believe this. I know that many teachers believe this, but I think that you have enough time. I don't think that there is too much information, and I think it is quite easy to pick out what select appropriate information. So we're going to get into a little bit more of that, but let's look at why is it really so hard. Let me just check the comments to make sure everything's okay and everything is fine. Hi Chris, please include opinion language in your talk, but I can't hear anything. Okay, Mohammed, this is, so I think you're new to the group, so welcome to the group. This is a live lesson on Task 1 Academic. There is no opinion language in Task 1 Academic because you're not including your opinion. If you can't hear anything, then check your volume. Nobody has complained about the sound, so I don't think it is an issue. Made this available only on computers and not mobiles. Mohammed, I'm not sure what device you're using. It should be available on anything that has Facebook. Okay. Hala, we hear you. Thank you very much, Hala. That's great. Okay, so let me get back into this live lesson. Mohammed, I'll get back to you, don't worry. So why is it really so hard? So over the weekend I thought about what are the real reasons for this. So test mode. If you have done my my Task 2 module on idea generation in this course, if you haven't done it, basically I talk a lot about the difference between how students operate in a test compared to how students operate outside the test. So I used to have lots of students who, when I asked them, about general ideas, about similar questions, when we were just talking in class face to face, just like a normal class, they were very intelligent people and they had no problem thinking of great ideas. But when they sat down in the test, they had huge problems thinking of ideas. So I thought about this a lot. And I think that what's to blame is this thing I call test mode. When you actually put an IELTS test in front of someone, they completely change how they think and how they respond to a question compared to how they would normally do it in real life. So that's why I call my idea generation a coffee shop method. Like, if you were sitting in a coffee shop with someone talking about these ideas, you would have no problem thinking of great ideas, explaining them, thinking of examples. But when you are in the test, you have big difficulty with it. That's Task 2. You can look that up in the module about idea generation. But I think the same applies to Task 1 Academic. If I showed someone a normal graph and I said, what are the general trends? What are the main things? What are the key features? They would probably have no problem telling me what they are. But if it was in a real IELTS test, they would really struggle. I'm going to look at that in more detail. We're going to look at 5 different graphs. But what I've done is I went and found real graphs. So graphs that I find from a real website. And they're very similar to real Task 1 questions. But I'm going to show you just how easy it is to analyze the data. Sorry, I should have turned off Skype. So we don't have to do that. Let me see. Any more comments? Okay, so very little experience dealing with this type of information. So this is not your fault. It is not normal for someone to analyze graphs and charts and pie charts and processes. It's just not something that a lot of people do. If you are a maths graduate or physics graduate or something like that, maybe you do something like that. You're looking at statistics a lot or looking at data a lot. But for most people, they are not used to dealing with this type of data. So that is a problem. Like Task 2. Most people can talk about, health and technology and education and things like that, but not many people are used to dealing with this sort of stuff. So that is a big problem. The other thing is overcomplicating things. When I would show graphs to people in class and I would say, just 2 seconds, 3 seconds, think about it, tell me the key features. They would be able to tell me the key features in 5 seconds, 10 seconds. But if you gave a graph to someone for 5 minutes and you asked them to analyze it, they would overcomplicate it so much and read into it so much and create things that weren't actually there. Whereas if they had a more relaxed attitude to it and taken less time, they would have just picked out the real key features really easily because they're not that difficult. They really are not that difficult. And I'm going to show you that over the next 10 or 15 minutes and over on Wednesday when we look at real IELTS questions. Again, just check the comments. Okay, a lot of you are asking questions. That's absolutely fine. Please leave them until the end, or don't expect an answer until the end. If I stop teaching and I start answering questions, especially admin questions, it's not going to be a very good lesson. So just wait until the end and I'll get back to you. Okay, so what can you do to get over these problems? Practice slow and fast. So what does practice slow and fast mean? Practice slow means that when you're practicing your IELTS Task 1 Academic, when you're first doing it, take as much time as you want. Look at the graphs, really think about them, think about the general trends, think about the data that's in them, and really think about them and take as much time as you want. But before your test, you must get used to analyzing data very quickly. You should be able to analyze data and plan out your Task 1 answer in 5 minutes or less, because you need 15 minutes to write your response. So take the time to learn everything you need to learn. I mean, look at the course, think about all of the things, watch the modules 2 or 3 times if you have to. Get everything in your head, but you must also practice under exam conditions to make sure that you will get the score that you need. Like, I've had people complaining that they didn't get a 7 or above, and I asked them, well, did you get Task 1 finished? Well, no, I didn't get Task 1 finished. Well, in practice, did you get Task 1 finished? No, I never got Task 1 done in 20 minutes. Well, how are you ever going to get the score that you need if you can't even do it properly in practice? Don't expect something magical or wonderful to happen in the real test. Look at data on its own merits. Okay, so what do I think? What do I mean by this? When you look at data, even in the test, do not look at it as in, this is an IELTS test. I'm analyzing this with IELTS glasses on. I'm looking at this through an IELTS lens. If you're looking at data, every graph, every pie chart, everything you get in Task 1 is going to be completely different. It's very unlike Task 2. With Task 2, we can definitely say that you're going to get either an opinion essay, a discussion essay, problem solution, a advantages and disadvantages, or a double question. And we can give you a definite structure and everything, and it's very predictable. With Task 1, we definitely know that you're going to get a bar graph, or a line graph, or a table, or a pie chart, or something like that. But we do not know what data it's going to contain. So I don't teach students like look for the highest, look for the lowest, what are the biggest differences. That's looking at data with IELTS glasses on through a very IELTS focused lens. Just look at the data as if you opened up a newspaper and you were interested in that data and it showed a graph. What would you think about it? What would be your main takeaways from it? What would be your conclusions about it? What would you say about it? Instead of looking for highest, lowest, that's standard IELTS teaching, bad teaching. Do not go in looking at it that way. find more material, find graphs, find charts. Like lots of people say to me, I find it very, very difficult to deal with pie charts. And I said, well, how many pie charts have you looked at in your life? None. How many pie charts have you tried to find so that you can analyze it? None. Okay, so how are you ever going to get used to these types of questions if you don't go and find the material? There's lots of material in this course, but you can also just Google like interesting pie charts, or just Google them and you'll find them. Get used to them. I know that it's boring as hell, and it's not something that you want to be doing too often because it's not very interesting. But if you really want to pass your test, you're going to have to get used to this data and realize how easy they are making it for you. I know that some people watching this right now are going to be like, these are the most difficult questions, I don't know how to do these, this is going to make me fail. If you knew that people in Cambridge who make these tests for you, they go out of their way to make the data as obvious as possible. They know that you only have 20 minutes. They know that you are not an expert in analysing graphs. They know that you're not an expert in pie charts or whatever data they're showing you. So if you actually look at the key features of many different graphs or many different charts or whatever it is, you will see just how easy they are making it for you. It's students that are the problem. Students are overcomplicating everything and thinking that because it's an IELTS test, the data has to be very, very complicated. The key features have to be very complicated. But like for most most line graphs over time, it's just as easy as one goes up, one goes down, one kind of goes up and down, and one stays the same. When you actually show that to a student, most of them say, no, it can't be that. That's too obvious. That's too easy. It is an easy answer, but it's the correct answer. Okay, so let me have a look here. All right. So what we're going to do is, now I want your participation. The rules of participation are, don't take too long. When we have done this in the past, when I've asked students to participate in these lessons, they have taken 5 minutes to think about something and then another 5 minutes to write about it. This means that we do not get through anything. What I want you to do is be very quick about this and write the first thing that you can think of. This is not a test situation. No one is going to criticize you. No, you're not going to fail anything. Just do it as quickly as you can. And doing these types of questions as quickly as you can will actually lead to better results. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at 5 graphs. And these are real graphs that I have looked at that I think that are very similar to what you might get in the real test, but they're from real sources. And there's a reason for that. It's because I want you to look at real sources and see just how easy it is. Okay, so here is the first one. And apologies if you cannot see exactly what is happening here. I know that some of you are watching, streaming this. It might not be the highest quality. If you're looking at it on a phone, maybe try and look at it on a real computer. Okay, so what 3 takeaways from this? If you had to say just 3 things and 3 things only about this graph, what would you say? So let me know, what would you say about this? 2 minutes. So just take 2 minutes to go through it. And don't be shy. Just the overall thing that you would say. And there's a prize for the first person to say something. No one is saying anything. Oh. Okay, so global growth in wages with or without China has the same trend, except for 2011. That'd be one thing you could say. Yeah, that's an exception. That's a notable exception. Yeah, the highest are in 2006, 2007, and the lowest 2011. Okay, so Denise, that's a very common mistake. Is you have been told by other IELTS teachers to just look for the highest and the lowest. So that's what you're specifically looking for. But they wouldn't be the 3, the 2 or 3 things that are really noticeable about this graph. Think more generally than that. Both decrease and global higher than the other. Don't understand what you mean, optimistic man. Maximum growth in 2007, minimum growth in 2011. Hiba, again, you're looking for the maximum and the minimum. That wouldn't be what I would say would be the most notable things about this. China had the highest growth, but we're not looking at China. We're looking at global and then global without China. So you need to remember what you say needs to be correct. Optimistic man, it's not clear enough. Sorry about that. Overall decline in wages. So this is about growth in wages, percentage growth in wages. So it doesn't really show the decline. That's a good point to make, though. You need to analyze the data by understanding what it actually is showing. Global wage decreased over the entire period. It's not showing global wage, so it's not showing this is not the total amount. These are percentage increases, so that would be wrong. So Christina, you're looking at highest and lowest again. That is a very common misconception about these, that you just look for the highest and lowest. In China, salary increased faster than the rest of the world. Well done, Tien. That is definitely the most obvious thing. All right, so we have global and then global without China. China is far their year-on-year growth in wages is far higher than the rest of the world. That is the number one noticeable thing. Because this is the title. So we see, I got this from a newspaper, and the title of the newspaper of the article was China needs to solve for rising wages. Because China's rise in wages is much, much, much higher than the rest of the world throughout this period. It's difficult for me to understand the title. It comes from Bloomberg.com, so it's not. That's just where it comes from. I didn't write the title. Okay, so I think the 3 most obvious things are that China obviously has higher year-on-year growth in wages compared to the rest of the world. And the other thing is, over the entire period, the percentage increase year-on-year growth in wages fluctuates. Okay, there's no rising trend, there's no falling trend. It's not steady. It fluctuates over the entire period. And the other trend is that they have similar. It's a similar trend, so except 2011. All right, in 2011, global without China was incredibly small, and comparatively, global altogether with China was 1%. With the rest of them, it kind of follows a similar trend. Okay, so those would be the three that I would notice. If you're new to the course and you just looked at that and went, what is he talking about? Do not worry, you need to go and look at all of the Task 1 modules, because the way I teach it is completely different from the way most people teach it, and because most people teach it incorrectly. Alright, this other one. So foreign firms are vying for Chinese talent. Job tenure of employees working for Chinese firms that have formed a joint venture with a company from another country. Okay, so this is US, EU, Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan. Okay, here is not the 3 years, this is 4 to 5 years, this is 6 to 10 years, and this is more than 10 years. So it's basically when the Chinese firm does a joint venture with a firm from another company, how long does an employee work for that company? What would you say would be one or two very, very obvious things about this data? And don't look for the highest and the lowest. Right? The highest and the lowest is not always the correct answer. Sometimes it is, most of the time it's not. So, Tian, very few employees stay for more than 10 years. Yep, that would be something very significant. They are in the minority. There's something more obvious though. If you were, don't look at it as in, how can I analyze this for an IELTS question? Just analyze it on its own merits. What do you think are the most striking things, the standout things about this? Are we talking about overall here? Yes, we're talking about overall trends. What do you think is the most significant thing? The number of employees decreases with time. So Tian, it's not the number of employees, it's the time that the employees spend with the firm. So we're not really given data on the number of employees, so we shouldn't really mention that, and we should only mention stuff that is in the data. That's a very common thing that I've noticed from teaching and from this group. A lot of people don't spend enough time just thinking about the data and what it actually does say and what it doesn't say. That is really, really crucial. But Tian, I'm not picking on you, like most people have that. Just one very obvious thing about this data. What do you think? Everybody's shy now because they think I'm going to tell them that you're wrong. I will tell you you're wrong if you're wrong, because there's no point in telling you anything. But employees in Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan are more loyal to their employees. I see where you're going there, Denise. But where does it say anything about loyalty? Remember, Task 1, you should never include any data that is not there. So it might show that, but what you're doing is you're reading into it and you're adding reasons that are not there. We don't know if it is from loyalty, or we don't know whether it's just because maybe, you know, the law says that people can't leave or they're paid a lot of money. We don't know the reasons. The reasons are not included, so we should not include those. I can't understand the title. Don't worry about the titles in this one. It's from Bloomberg. This is not a real IELTS Task 1. I got these from Bloomberg.com, so don't worry about the title. 0 to 3 years has more employees in 4 countries. Is that what you would say about this? US, EU are the least stable group. Careful with your language there. Would stable implies that you know something about them that this graph isn't showing. So what I would say is just, if you were to look at Hong Kong and Taiwan, or Japan and Korea, these two, you're far more likely to find people that have worked for companies longer in Japan, Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, compared to US, EU. US, EU, you're far more likely to find people that have only worked for 0 to 3 years or 4 to 5 years than people who have worked there for more than 5 years. So there's a big difference between Hong Kong, Taiwan, and Japan and Korea, and that group together. There's a big difference between them and these guys. With the US, EU, you're far more likely to find people that don't work for very long, for definitely under 5 years. With Japan and Korea, you're more likely to find people who have worked there a bit longer. And if you compare these two, although they're quite similar, you're more likely to find people who have worked 6 to 10 years or more in Hong Kong and Taiwan. So that's what I would say. If you are a bit worried about this, if you're looking at this and going, I didn't get that at all, again, if you're new, go and look at the Task 1 modules. The thing to take away from this is, or what you'll find in the modules is, you have to look at the purpose of the graph. The purpose of a line graph over the course of 15 years compared to a bar chart that just shows 3 different categories, the purpose of those graphs is completely different. The purpose of those graphs is to compare the 3 regions. And, the purpose of the graph is also to compare the 4 time periods. So you're making lots and lots of comparisons with this type of data. But with other things, which we'll look at it in a little bit more detail in the remainder of this lesson, you're looking for general trends over time and things like that. Okay, so calorie consumption per day by age, men, United States. So we've got 2 years, 2002. Don't worry about this. Okay, don't worry about food and beverages and anything like that. Just focus on the 2 different years. So 2002, 2012, what would you say? 1 or 2 very, very obvious things about this. Is this session not for the newcomers, Chris? It's for everybody. It's for everybody. I'm just highlighting the fact that people who have done all the Task 1 modules will have a better grasp of this stuff than people who haven't. It's an important point to make. Should we always go for general trends first and then go on to point out the obvious differences? It depends totally on the data. Look at the Task 1 modules where it talks a lot about purpose, and that will answer that question. And don't overcomplicate this. Yeah, something very, very general and very, very obvious that you would include in your overview. What would you say about this? Just looking at your answers, I haven't left. I'm just looking at stuff you're saying. Yeah, Edith, very good. In 2002, calorie consumption decreased with age, while in 2012 it remained relatively the same until we got to 50, 59. So I think that is the most obvious thing. If we look at, do I have my pen? So if we just look at the 2002 data, it decreases more, and then it decreases even more. So if we draw a line here, there is a decreasing trend amongst this. So that is one very obvious thing. But if we look here, it kind of stays the same, and it decreases a little bit. Oh, and it decreases a little bit. So these three are pretty much the same. And then it does, then it does decrease. Why is this not working? And it does decrease. So I would say what this graph is trying to show is how the difference between 2002 and 2012. So I think the two general trends would be 2002, it decreases as people get older, whereas in 2012 it's relatively the same, from 20 to 49, and then it decreases from 50 to 59, which is an exception for that. Okay, so let's look at this one. Number of marathon and half marathon finishers in the US in the 2000s. So finishers are people who start a marathon and finish it. And this is something that you get very, very similar data to this in task 1. What is the general trend? What do you think are the general trends here? How many trends should we look for? Key features. So you're not just looking for general trends. Sometimes you're looking for trends, sometimes you're looking for comparisons, sometimes you're looking for other things. We covered, if that answer is like, why doesn't he just tell us? Because we take about 2 or 3 modules just to cover that question in the task 1 course. But in general, for overviews, that's where you're going to include your key features between 2 and 4. It will depend on the data. So yeah, the number of people who are finishing is increasing. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. This is a very typical one where students would look at this and go, okay, so let's look at the highest, and then let's look at the lowest, and then let's compare these, and then let's go and look at this one, and then this is different. Like, you're just running around in circles. But if you look at just compare women, it's going up. Men, it's also going up. So for both men and women, the number of finishers is increasing. There are 2 key features. I think the other key feature would be that in the mid-2000s, there were more men finishers, but women overtook these in 2008 and continued to increase their lead in terms of number of finishers over men. So yeah, both increase, and pardon the pun, but I know this is about marathons, women do take over men, literally and figuratively. Okay, last one. What is the number 1 most significant feature about this? Forget about highest and lowest and all of that stuff. Just like if you looked at this and you're talking to a friend and they said, what's the one thing that is really noticeable about this? What would it be? Overall sales increase for 3 countries. That is true. But what is a really noticeable thing? The percentage of retail increased over the years? Yeah. All countries increased? Yeah, but it's not the most significant thing. There was a general increase? That's true. But what is the most significant? Like, what's the kind of really shocking thing? Like, it's kind of unbelievable. And the number of you are talking about number of sales. This does not show number of sales. It shows percentage. 2 completely different things. We're not talking about amount. We're talking about percentages of all the sales. China overtook the US and the UK. That's kind of an understated way of saying it. China suddenly made a dramatic peak. Yeah, okay, so look at the Chinese data. It's pretty much non-existent. There's pretty much nothing. It's like less than 1% for like 8 years for most, and then it dramatically just rockets up to take the lead. That is the most significant thing about the whole graph. You are correct that, what am I doing here? All 3, so if we take all 3 together, they do increase. That is correct. What are we? UK increases steadily, US increases steadily, but China, from nothing to straight up takes the lead. So this is another example of how easy it is to analyze this. But what you're doing is you're overcomplicating it a little bit. Just look at, if you could tell someone one thing about this graph, like imagine that this graph was in a newspaper. What would the headline be? Would the headline be percentage of sales increases in China, US, and UK? Would that be the headline? Probably not. The headline is going to be something like China rockets up and overtakes US and UK. Like, that is the most significant thing about this. Okay, so. Alright, so. Summary. The reasons you think are to blame might not be the real reasons. So the reasons why you think that these questions are difficult might not be the real reasons. Think about maybe you're overcomplicating it. Or think maybe that you are in test mode and you're looking at everything through an IELTS lens. You're looking for highest and lowest. You're looking for things that are specifically going to be included in an IELTS answer. And that's stopping you actually looking at this question for what it really is. You also need to expose yourself to more real data. You can find that using Google. Go and look at newspaper articles that have graphs in them. Or if you're reading the news and you see them talking about data, think about how they are describing it. You also need to practice under exam conditions and get out of your own way while you're doing that. So you need to get everything done in 20 minutes. Part of that is analysing all the data, and you need to stop thinking that these questions are really, really, really difficult, because they are not. They are designed to be easy. They are designed so that you will notice things pretty quickly. Like most people who write these questions and IELTS examiners are really frustrated because they're like, we are making this stuff easy for you. Why are you not picking up on this? It is quite frustrating because they are making it pretty easy. Let me see. Okay, so I think that was a very useful lesson for two reasons. If you have been on the course for a while, it will allow you to think about things maybe a little bit differently in terms of mindset and how you're thinking about these things, and give you some tips about how you can go forward. If you've just joined the course, I think this was very useful because it showed you that you're thinking about these in the wrong way. You're thinking about not your fault, you have been just taught the wrong way. So don't worry if a lot of that was confusing or you didn't get it, because it's all covered basically in the course. If you have any questions, I have 10 minutes before I have to go, so ask me any questions you like. I know a number of you asked questions at the beginning, but if you asked a question at the beginning, please ask again, and then I'll be able to help you out. Tim, this is an incredible lesson. I appreciate much of your comments. I'm here to learn. You're welcome. So what I try and do, like a lot of the stuff I try and do is try and think of different ways of teaching this stuff, because the way that a lot of stuff is taught is just a lazy way that people are teaching it. They're basically going and looking at what everyone else has said about this. So telling people, just look at the highest and the lowest, or just look at the biggest and the smallest, or look at the biggest difference. If that worked, then everybody would get these questions correct. You do have to think about those things, but it obviously doesn't work. Like, that's not the only thing you have to think about. So yeah, it's important to highlight this stuff. Denise, excellent class. You're welcome. I think Wednesdays is going to be even better because we'll be looking at real task 1 questions, or I'll create them, and we'll look at them. We'll look at how to pick out the correct data and also how to organize that data. Can you give other example? There are, if you haven't watched the task 1 modules, there are many examples in there. Thank you, Chris. Great review. You're welcome. So you're saying that we should first pick out the most noticeable thing about the graph. Sometimes other data is there to bring out one piece of data, actually China online sales. Yeah. How I want you to look at it is basically, like, imagine that you are a newspaper reporter, you're a journalist, and your editor, your boss, shows you data, shows you a graph, and says, write some things about this, write a story, write about 150 words about this. What would be the things that you would write about? If I showed you that line graph, you wouldn't write about China is the highest, UK is the second highest, and the United States is the third highest, because that doesn't mean anything, and it doesn't really describe what's actually happening. So you would talk about overall things, like, overall they all increased over the entire period, but you'd also mention, like, the thing about China, because that's, that's really the shocking part of the most noticeable thing. There was a whole Bloomberg article just about that data, about the Chinese percentage going up so much. I'm in my last test. I have a library map which was converted to a theatre over time. Can you add any of those, please? Yes, module 12, task 1 academic module 12 is all about maps. Thanks, Chris, was able to be in your live course today. You're welcome, Nirut. Okay. Thank you very much, everybody, and it doesn't look like we're going to get any more questions. If you're watching the replay of this and you have a question, don't write them below the video, because I don't have time to go and check every single video every day, so that would just be crazy. If you have a question, either post it on the wall of the group so that everybody can see it, and then I can see it, more importantly, or email me. Please do not go and look at old videos and write a question below the video. Even if you tag me, I'm not going to see it, because if you see my Facebook, every day I get thousands of notifications, so I just don't even look at the notifications anymore. So if you need me, email or post on the wall of the group. And if you post on the wall of the group, you'll normally get a really, really fast response from not only me, but everybody else, and that's a really good way to do it. Whereas if you email me, it could be up to 24 hours before I get back to you. Okay, thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed that lesson, and